Hi, I'm Michelle Bosch, real estate investor, mom, wife, and host of the InFLOW podcast. And I'm passionate about helping women invest in land and apartments. Join me each and every week for real estate investing strategies and interviews with thought leaders that will leave you inspired and ready to step into flow for inflows of cash, inflows of ease, and inflows of grace in your life. Now, here on YouTube are the video versions of my podcast, and in order for you to get my latest information, please go ahead and subscribe. And now, let's go. Welcome to the InFLOW podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Bosch. I'm very excited today to have on this week's episode of InFLOW a wonderful, wonderful woman. Her name is Jill Johnson, and Jill is a mother of 5 that is homeschooling, that is doing real estate, that is doing blogging, that is doing CrossFit. I mean, she is amazing. She's also an accountability coach for other women that want to get involved in real estate, and I couldn't be happier to have her. So welcome to InFLOW, Jill.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Wonderful. So, Jill, so tell us, I am so, really curious to find out, how are you now with, 5 children at home, balancing that act with the real estate, with the CrossFit, with, the accountability coaching. Tell us a little bit more about that, because I think women, when it comes to that, have a full plate on both fronts. And I'm just really curious. I have 1, and I'm telling you that sometimes I feel like my hands are full, so I can't imagine 5.
It's a juggling act. I will say that. It does take a lot of planning and things like that. I am a scheduler. I've got my schedule with me. I am so passionate about that. And one thing that I have started kind of in the last year with having all the kids, homeschooling, but also running my business, but then also working in my coaching, is I do a lot of time blocking. Yeah. And so what that is I have a set time that I'm working, maybe on a specific subject with the kids. And then I have a specific time that I'm working with my coaches. But then I also just try to eliminate distractions of, emails and social media and things like that, where I just schedule certain times. And my kids, thankfully, they're getting older. So that makes it a lot easier. I was in that stage when we started homeschooling. My oldest was 6, and we had, baby twins, and it was a lot more all over the place. So I think just different stages of your life, you kind of, you graduate, so to speak, to a little bit more balance. But I think keeping with that balance, it's, it's getting up early, it's getting my workouts in, it's knowing that part is my spiritual time, that's already done before I start with my kids or start with my business.
So wonderful. Yes. I can totally relate to the time blocking, Jill. I can totally relate to the kind of like the seasons of life, especially when they're just born. There's, you're going to be to an 80% there for them. And eventually, as they start growing up a little bit, that kind of focus and attention can start shifting. And of course, if you have support at home, well, that really allows for much more fullness in our lives, especially during that time when they're very, very young. So tell me a little bit about your background, Jill. How did you start investing in real estate? So, so you're a coach, you are also a blogger, mom, and then how does that combine with real estate? Where did real estate find you, meet you, and how did you fall in love with it?
Yes, so I have kind of an interesting, tough story that led me to real estate. I was married for 14 years. We had 5 kids, and my husband got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And so after suffering a devastating loss, he fought for 11 months and passed away, and I was left with 5 kids. Thankfully, financially, we were really stable. He had a good job and was so smart with things, but I also knew that was probably only going to last a certain amount of time. And I kind of needed to figure things out. Now, thankfully, I had several years to figure that out. But my first taste in real estate came in the form of a hard money loan to, believe it or not, a family member. I really didn't know it at the time, but it worked very well because it provided this income for the kids and I to be able to do, extra things and just created more cushion. So it wasn't such a stretch for us. And through that, kind of make a very long story shorter, I just started to get more interested in real estate and decided I wanted to make an investment for the kids and I. Through that, I actually met my now husband, Joe, who was also interested in the same thing. He had a construction background. And so together we kind of thought it was kind of the perfect combination. And we actually formed a partnership and started investing in single family homes is where we started our investments. And then quickly realized that we wanted to scale and wanted to have multifamily. And over the last 2.5 years, we've gone from 0 doors to 58 doors. And it's been an amazing partnership. Through all of that, we actually have gotten married, and he's taken on, believe it or not, all 6 of us. So he deserves he deserves a medal. But we've established just a really cool partnership together, and we really make our real estate a family affair. And that's kind of our start.
Wow. I, for some reason, had missed, the part. I am so sorry about this huge loss, in your life for you and your kiddos. And it's almost like, God never, forgets about you. And there comes, this other wonderful man now, that you guys came across that, like you said, makes all 6 of you, his now. And that is so, wonderful to hear in terms of like, your outlook now for your children. Now that not that you didn't have one, because I mean, your grit, your determination to figure things out, you said after his loss, is absolutely palpable, based on, how you just, described that, particular period in your life. And that it was accidental, your first real estate experience was really with what we call temporary cash, where you have residual passive cash flow coming in. But once, that note is paid off, the residual cash flow ends. And I love that, you could recognize that, and you started, going into the single family space, and now eventually into multifamily. So your current focus is multifamily. How many units usually is your sweet spot? What are you looking at?
Yeah, so our sweet spot has kind of been buying from a mom and pop. We've been able to, someone has poured their life into this building, these apartments, and we're able to kind of come in and show them our vision, show them that we want to do much like what they've done with our family, with our kids. And so we have found some apartments around like the C-class property and take it from a C to a B. And so that's kind of our sweet spot. We're anywhere from like 10 units to 19 units is kind of where not that we wouldn't love to get something bigger, but that's just kind of what we've been blessed with right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Are you generally investing in your market, or are you doing some remote investing as well?
Yes, our market where we live, we have 3 we have a duplex and a single family, but it's very pricey here. And so we invest, we live in Colorado, and so we invest about an hour and 15 minutes down the road. That's where we have 31 of our doors. But then we've also recently, in the last little over a year, invested in New Mexico as well. So we actually have some out-of-state properties too that obviously we're hands off with those. Just we have a property manager in place, and that's kind of nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you're not having to take, the toilet calls and somebody's picking up rent for you. Because I was going to say, we have 50 single family homes as well in 3 different markets. And, it's a different animal than large multifamily, because when we decided to go for multifamily, we actually went to the upper end, 100 plus units, so that we could have, the cushion of a full-time leasing agent, maintenance, and somebody just in charge of turnovers, and a first-in-class property management company that could cushion us from that. And we, were left really with the task of the asset management per se, So now you have a property management, company in charge, but you're still having to run them like a single family operation, correct? Where if you have, an AC unit that goes bad, you're having to call in an actual, AC company versus having somebody on premises that takes care of you guys. Or because you have already 31, you have a little bit of more economies of scale and can have somebody that does, that for you guys.
And that's just what we've done. We wouldn't be anything without our team. We have a really great team. And even, I'll call them local, even though it is like an hour and a half down the road. Our local ones, we still have people that we can depend on. And I think that's really important to build your team up around you to, we have a life. We want to travel. We want to do, we have 5 kids. We're very, very busy. And if we're at a tournament for someone's sport, we obviously can't drop everything and go fix whatever needs to be fixed. And so it's just been really important to build strong people that are kind of boots on the ground for us there.
How did you guys decide on an hour and a half? Like, what's interesting about that market that makes you want to go there?
So when we first started looking, I think that was our big light bulb moment, because you kind of are only looking at you're in your backyard. And we were looking at it, the numbers didn't make sense. The numbers made sense if you could pay cash, but you can't, that's just not feasible. And so actually my husband checked into a market that was near us that we were familiar with, that is larger than where we live, has some, just some more jobs and things like that. And we were looking at single family homes that we could get in. One of our first ones that we bought for $85,000, and it rented for $1,300. So numbers really worked for us. And that's where we've kind of we always want to run the numbers to make sure it works. And then the same has happened with New Mexico as well. Now, since then, I just think it was a God thing we got in when we did, because the prices have gone up considerably where we're at now, which is great. You have that appreciation and things like that, but it is much harder to find those deals. Those deals don't exist anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if we wanted to shift back a little bit into, because even there, you found yourself as, as a widow with your kids, and that you have to figure something out. But there's some resources there. You do your first hard money loan, and so you must already be in a confidence level, in handling money that is different than someone who, is starting from ground zero, the bottom, from the bottom up. So how did you grow up around money, Jill? And are you instilling those same values in your 5 kiddos right now? Or was it not necessarily a great experience growing up, when it came to talking about money and handling and managing money when you were growing up, and now you're doing things differently? Like how do those two compare?
Yes, it's a really, really good question, actually, because I think that is the root of a lot of different things there. I grew up, I was a farm kid, grew up on the farm. My parents both worked. So I was just around hard work my whole life. When my friends were sleeping in, my dad was hollering at us to, get to work. And so that was something that was instilled in me and my siblings at a very, very young age that you work really hard. I wish that I had probably asked more questions growing up or learned a little bit more growing up, because I was just under the mindset that, hey, you do well in school, you go to college, you get a degree, you get a job, and that's how it all works.
Yeah.
But what I did is, it costs a lot of money to live. I was living in Chicago when I got my first job and not really making very smart decisions. I wish I would have known to delay that instant gratification and to be more disciplined. So I think a lot of my growing up in the financial world came when I met my first husband, and I learned a lot through that. But then sadly, most of it came when I lost him. He was a financial guy. I mean, he was the CFO for his company. So I was the mom. I was running the household. I was doing the groceries. I was saving money where I could, but ultimately he was managing all of that. And then when he was gone, I read so many books. I just listened to podcasts. I just self-educated myself because I'm kind of embarrassed that I didn't know more, but you don't know what you don't know, I guess. And there was just a lot that I didn't even really understand. And I'm still learning, I'm still not, perfect at everything. But one thing that my husband and I are both passionate about is teaching our kids the power of money and delaying some of those things that they want to buy right now for future investments. And so we're very open with them about what things cost. We're very open about, how to create cash flow. We incorporate things into our curriculums even. They're learning about the stock market and the volatility there. And that was a big education once COVID hit, to see, they all had stocks and to see those go down, but they saw that we were still taking in rent checks. And so we just really feel like it's good to talk about money. And I don't know that generation has felt that way. So that's something that we just want to make sure that our kids can ask us, pretty much anything. And we're going to be really open and honest with them, because our daughter, actually, she leaves for college. We got one more year with her. And so we just want her to make really, really smart decisions and to do better than I did.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. So you have already, college age kids. That is amazing. You're living my future. Like I said, I only have one, mine is 12, but that is amazing. And so you have a college one. She's your oldest, I'm assuming?
Turned 17. So we have one more year with her. She's going to be a senior. And then we have a 15-year-old. We have an almost 13-year-old. And then we were blessed with twins that are 11. So yeah, we're starting to see, oh my goodness, now we have to pay for college. Now we have to do this. And we're even teaching her, one of her plans. Our oldest two actually own one of our investments. They're invested in it. And part of that is they negotiated with us to help pay for school and things like that. And so our oldest daughter wants to, her big dream is to buy a home where she goes to school and then rent it out to her friends. So It's pretty cool. Their brains work like that. And, they're so young, but they absorb so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the same experience we're getting here. Sophia hearing us about, our two lines of businesses and acquisitions of, high dollar amount. And so she's like, oh, but that, that is only $50,000. I'm like, no, it's not just only 50,000. But they start getting used to, big numbers and really kind of like standing on the shoulders of your capability and your confidence in dealing with money and handling with money, So I can totally see an amazing future for her as a future landlord, of her peers. That would have been amazing for me at age 19 to, have been here and had that mindset, going in and having my, pretty much her house, an amazing asset, paid for from the rent of her roommates. And because probably most of her own college, professors are not going to be there, at that level. And she's coming in there already, with her foot on the gas when it comes to, to finances. So that is fantastic. Something very interesting that you mentioned, Jill, is that, they have stock. You guys are in the stock market, but also in real estate. And I have found, that there's either you're a hardcore real estate person or stock market person, and trying to basically, especially when it comes to fundraising for multifamily, there's a lot of people heavily invested in stocks, and that you have to incredibly educate in terms of what real estate can offer from the point of view of depreciation benefits, of the control that you have over the asset, you know what I mean, in terms of operating it and having control over the returns, versus in the stock market, you really have no control. And so how do you guys marry those two completely different worlds, for yourselves and for the kids now?
Yeah, well, part of our education with the kids is, and I was mentioning the stock market, is they've downloaded, there's an app that you can, pretend money, but they get to invest in stocks. And so watching that. And then also the flip side of that, where you see the volatility of the market, especially now. I mean, it's crazy. And I don't really know enough about it to, I would never want to coach or anything on the stock market. It's a different animal, but real estate, I understand. I mean, I understand long term, this is not a quick fix. When you're thinking long-term investment, generational wealth, I mean, that's really, that's probably really on my heart, really something that I'm passionate about, because, and I know that you've come from having a really tough loss in your life as well with your dad, that I want that generational wealth to grow with them. And so we tend to, yes, do we have some investments in the stock market? We do, because I do like to have different avenues of income. And it's with your InFLOW, but if you have these little streams that come together, they make a really nice river. And that's really a good stream that you can live off of. And, but not only that, but create long-term wealth.
I love this, little streams that make a river. That is a beautiful analogy. Absolutely. And let the river overflow. This is a great place for the river to overflow for sure. It normally isn't, but in this situation it is. And with this metaphor, yeah, absolutely. Now, what are you excited about right now in the future? What's in store? Because we've had, a crazy period of 2 to 3 months right now, with the COVID crisis. And so what's your outlook? What are you excited about right now going forward in terms of opportunities, and how are you positioning yourself right now to capitalize on those?
Yeah, it has been a little scary at times. Thankfully, where we're invested in, it's been the stable investment that it has been, and proving that even with COVID, we've actually are now finding some renters for our multifamily of people who are renting houses and can't afford the house anymore. And so they're trickling down to that. And then other people, are moving into those homes. So that's been really, really interesting. Right now, we're actually taking some time to renovate and improve our asset class. And we're doing that a little bit in our New Mexico market. But then my husband is actually, it's been quiet. And so he's a construction background. And so he's decided he's going to go and keep the money, keep paying himself, I guess, to renovate some of those properties. So we've been able to do a few units like that. And then we're really just trying to position ourselves, paying down some debt that we have so that we can, the smoke kind of clears and people realize maybe they're in over their head. There's going to be opportunity, and we just want to be in a position to purchase another multifamily. I mean, it would be ultimately our goal to have a multifamily building for each one of our children.
Oh, that is a beautiful thing, because that is, and it only takes one good such investment. It's like you mentioned, from the story, my story, my dad had that one decision in that one piece of commercial property. And to this day, it spits out cash. There's nothing more passive than not physically being there and still being able to provide for your family. You know what I mean? So that would be amazing, an amazing legacy for each one of them, and not just for them, but the future family tree, so that would be fantastic. I know that you mentioned already a little bit about, your routine in the morning and your ritual of, waking up early that came with, your upbringing of growing up in a farm. But I still always love to ask, on a daily basis, I'm sure that permeates throughout your day, but are there any other things that you do to incorporate faith, grace, ease in your life? Because crazy things come at us every day, and I'm wondering what are some of those things that you use that we can all learn from, and test it out, try it on, see if it works for you, and hopefully help us feel a little bit more grounded.
Yes. I would not be anywhere without my faith, without God, and just leading me through such a devastating loss, being left to raise 5 kids. So that is definitely a silver lining in all of this, that my faith has grown tremendously. And I have learned that it's not about me, it's about Him, and He is going to provide. And so that is just something that's been very, very neat, but also extremely painful to be molded in that way. But some things that I do is just my daily devotion and prayer time. I just make it a priority to get up each morning and start my day that way. And then this is something else that I just find really, really helpful is actually like journaling. I did that when I lost my husband, and I wrote down everything, all my feelings. And honestly, some of that, I can't even go back and read to this day, because it's so raw. But I feel like doing that on a daily basis just really keeps you grounded. And then I'm so big on gratitude and keeping a gratitude journal. And that's something that I try to instill in the kids, even around the dinner table. We're always going around picking, something that we're grateful for, and, maybe something that we're struggling with, but always coming from a place of gratitude. I think just it sets your day off to be grounded where it needs to be.
That is beautiful. We try to also, before going to bed, because Sophia, believe it or not, is more high maintenance right now when we're trying to get to bedtime than she was when she was a baby. But at least it's an opportunity, sometimes in the dark there, after having read a little story, to chat with her and to kind of like, anchor in her mind before she goes to sleep, in her subconscious, her top, favorite highlights of the day. And which for me, it's like, if you look for the good in your day, it's like you're appreciating it. And with anything that you appreciate, well, it appreciates, it's that gratitude kind of like disguised, I guess, by looking for, the wonderful things or the highlights of your day, for sure. So I need to start going back to journaling. When you mentioned that, I'm like, oh yeah, I used to do that and it works so well. I stopped doing it, So, so thank you for the gift of that reminder. Yeah, absolutely. Now, if somebody wanted to start right now in real estate, Jill, and finds themselves, in a difficult, tough situation with their back against the wall, what would be one piece of advice that you would give to a woman right now that wants to basically get back on track?
Yeah, that's such a good point to make. I think finding, if it was one piece of advice, I would say find a mentor, find a coach that can help really hone in on where you need to work and what you need to do, because I think sometimes we just can't see it for ourselves, and it just takes somebody removed to take a look, to say, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? And then also, I just find the accountability piece is huge. When you know that you have to check in with somebody or that someone cares and is, we do things so much differently. We actually commit to things and we make things happen. And so I think finding someone who's where you are, or excuse me, who's where you want to be, and up is just so, it's so huge. And you're passionate about it, I'm passionate about it, helping other women to just elevate their thinking and elevate their life. There's so much that we can do that we don't even realize. Those limiting beliefs can just be devastating to us sometimes. And so getting those out of the way so that we can actually soar.
That is beautiful. Yes, I am a 100% believer of mentoring, of coaching. Jack and I, we both eat our own cooking. We don't just offer coaching, but we are incredibly coachable. We set aside every year, anywhere between $50,000 to $80,000 worth of, education, basically, budget aside to make sure that we are always at not just the cutting edge when it comes to real estate, but in terms of mindset and the peer and caliber of people that we surround ourselves, with, because, those people don't just fall from the sky and move next door. You actually have to seek them out, and be around, people that are already living where you want to go. Exactly what you just said. Absolutely. It's for us, it has been, we learned actually that, Jill, the hard way, in that for the first several years, we did this on our own, without coaches, and it took so much longer. And it was almost like a constant struggle and really forceful expansion versus a much more harmonious way to do it. Because, when you mentor with someone or coach with someone, they're big time collapsers, and time equals money. And time equals freedom to spend time with family, to travel, to, go visit your beach house, to, you know what I mean? So it's such a time collapser. And if you find someone that, aligns with your values, that has, if you're learning a new strategy, you know what I mean, that has the right strategy, a superior approach, you're in for quantum leaps versus incremental, growth that takes years, So totally on board with that. Jill, if anyone wanted to learn more about, your coaching, your accountability, get in touch with you, where can anyone go?
Yes, thank you. I actually write a blog called Life's Never Dull, lifesneverdull.com. And then it's also Life's Never Dull on all the social media handles. And I'm an open book. I'm super passionate about helping other women. So if they wanted to look me up, that'd be awesome. And I also can offer a free ebook on goal setting as well. So I can give you that link to put in your show notes as well.
Okay, wonderful. That would be fantastic. Thank you so much, Jill. It has been, such an honor to have you here today on InFLOW, and to really get to know you. And I am walking away right now, from our, 30 minutes, very well lived, absolutely inspired by your grit, your determination, your outlook, your optimism, just the light that, now you're instilling in your children. And so beautiful. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. I absolutely loved it. I love your show. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I hope this episode left you feeling inspired and ready to get inflows of cash, inflows of light, and inflows of faith in your life. I welcome your reviews on iTunes. Please leave me a review and help me create an amazing community of women in flow. Thank you, as always, for sharing your voice by going to michellebosch.com and joining the conversation about this show. And while you're there, grab a copy of my 10 Commandments to Living a Life in Flow. You can also follow me on Facebook at Michelle Bosch and on Instagram at Michelle Bosch Official. Thank you very much, and until the next one.